Welcome. Today, we're going to dig into a framework that could totally change how you teach math. The whole idea is that to get to the right answers, you have to start by asking the right questions. And they're not about math, they're about the student. So think about it for a second. When you need to help somebody with math, what's your go-to move? For most of us, it's probably grabbing a textbook or printing out a worksheet full of problems. I mean, it just feels like the logical place to start, doesn't it? Well, what if that instinct is actually wrong? What if jumping straight into the problems means you're missing the most important part of the equation? Turns out, the real first step is to focus on the learner. Before you can even think about teaching them math, you've got to understand how they think, how they process information, really how they see the world. It's a huge shift from being subject first to being student first. This whole philosophy is built on a really clear four-step framework. First, you learn the student. Second, you analyze their learning patterns. Third, you choose the right method just for them. And fourth, you're constantly testing, discussing, and refining your whole approach. Let's break that down. All right, let's dive into step one. Learn the student. The core idea here is simple, but it's also pretty profound. Before they can learn anything from you, you have to really truly learn about them. And I mean really go deep. You need to figure out their strengths and weaknesses, not just in math, but overall. How do they take in information? How do they approach any kind of problem? You can even use assessments to get a really clear picture of the cognitive skills they're working with. And then you ask these questions that seem so simple on the surface. Not, hey, what's 5 times 5? But what is math? These big conceptual questions tell you so much more about their real understanding than any rote exercise ever could. It shows you if they just see math as a bunch of rules to memorize or as a whole system to understand. So, all that information you've gathered leads us right into step 2, analyze. Now that you've got all this data, it's time to put on your detective hat and find the clues hidden inside. This is not just about looking at a test score. It's about mixing that formal data with what you've observed yourself. You've seen what makes them light up and what makes them shut down, right? So, why do they love certain tasks and just resist others? The answer to that is a huge piece of the puzzle. Your analysis then points you directly to step 3, choose the method. So this whole thing isn't just an interesting thought exercise. It's a practical guide that shows you exactly which tools you need for the job. And this is where teaching gets really cool. It stops being this one-size-fits-all script and becomes a totally customized toolkit. So if your student is a visual thinker, you might try a flowchart-based method. If they're a hands-on learner, you go with an experience-based approach. See, the method serves the student, not the other way around. So let's just walk through a quick example. Let's say your analysis from step 2 makes it super clear that the student just hates rote memorization and endless practice sheets. They just completely tune out. And boom, this is the power of the process right here. Instead of trying to force them through more worksheets, you pivot. You choose an experience-based method. Maybe you use cooking to teach fractions, or you build something to teach geometry. The student's needs are what dictate your teaching strategy. It's brilliant. And finally, that brings us to step 4, test, discuss, and refine. Okay, this is so crucial. This step isn't the final exam, it's a continuous feedback loop. It's the engine that powers the whole process forward and drives real improvement. This step completely reframes how we look at answers. A correct answer isn't just a point you scored. It reveals a strength, something you can build on. And even more important, a mistake isn't a failure. It's a gift. Seriously, it's like a spotlight that perfectly illuminates a specific learning gap that you now know exactly how to bridge. So how do you bridge those gaps? Well, not with more drills. You do it with creativity. You can use games and fun facts to make a concept stick. You can try some creative activities. And honestly, one of the most powerful things you can do is connect that new, tricky idea to a concept they already feel good about. You know, when you put this all together, you start to realize this isn't just a list of teaching tips. It's a whole new philosophy. It's a completely different way of thinking about education. It all comes back to this 4-step cycle. Learn the person, analyze their patterns, choose the right tool for them, and then use every single interaction, every success, every mistake to refine your approach and start the cycle all over again. And by adopting this framework, your role just fundamentally changes. You stop being just a math teacher who's there to deliver information, and you become a learning guide who helps them understand in a way that is personal, dynamic, and way more effective. So we'll end on this really powerful idea. Every mistake reveals a learning gap, an opportunity to improve. If you take one thing away from all this, let it be that. Start seeing mistakes not as failures, but as signposts on the road to real understanding.